Alright, so now let's go to the next step. As soon as the user typed I want to buy a bouquet, the bot came back with would you like to compose a bouquet yourself? And you can see that these two were the active contexts at that step. Now let's say the user says yes at that step. Now you can see that it added one more context, another context became active, the yes hyphen compose. So now we have three active contexts. One of them is compose, the other is yes hyphen compose, and the third one is bouquet. Now if you go to the candidate explorer and you also click on yes hyphen compose, you notice that that actually added one more intent into this candidate intents list. So now we have compose, greetings, no compose, yes compose, choose, and yes compose. All of them have become candidate intents at this step. And I think it is a good idea to go and look at the flowchart at this point. Because when you go and look at the flowchart, what you are seeing is when the user says yes, it is going to say what kind of flowers would you like to add first. And notice that what the flowchart expects, at least what the flowchart tells should happen, is that the user can say please add 5 red roses, which means yes hyphen compose hyphen choose should be the intent which should fire. Now, well, let's think about this for a minute. We already know that because of the state of the context we have in the conversation, we have 5 candidate intents. Compose and greetings we can ignore because they don't have input context and they can fire at any step in the conversation. But according to our analysis, no hyphen compose, yes hyphen compose, yes hyphen compose hyphen choose. All the three are still candidate intents at the step because of the contexts which are currently active. On the other hand, if you notice the flowchart itself, when the user says yes, the bot comes back with what kind of flowers would you like to add. The intent which we want to fire, yes hyphen compose hyphen choose, that is the intent which is, I would call that as the target intent. So the way you define a target intent is you take a look at your flowchart, and based on the step where you are, you take a look and you say like, okay, so which intent would I like to fire at the step, and that is what I am going to refer to as the target intent. Now you can already see that even though we have only one target intent, we actually have 5 candidate intents. And not only, now let's be clear about something. Just because an intent is a candidate, it means that it may fire, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will fire. What takes an intent from being a candidate to actually firing is also the phrase that the user types in has to match a training phrase which is already inside the intent. So just because something is a candidate, it doesn't mean that it's going to fire. It also has to match the training phrase, and that is the user's input, and the training phrase also has to match. So for now, just looking at this particular step in the conversation, what I would like you to take away is that we want the yes hyphen compose hyphen choose to fire at the step. So we call this the target intent. We already have 5 candidate intents, which means that for now we don't expect the other 4 to be target intents at this step. Even though they are candidate intents, the other 4 are not actually target intents at this step.